often people on my channel show up and say, why don't you go ahead and take a picture of the edge and show me the pictures? And I don't, does everyone else get that comment all the time? Because I get it all
constantly.
And I've tried in the past to try to kind of explain the issues, the bureaucracy, but it's a difficult subject to kind of try to address. And, you know, most of the time you're arguing with people that have an agenda as well. So I decided that I needed to go in and just kind of make a comprehensive video about all of the regulations that prohibit independent travel in Antarctica. And the fact that this is a worldwide phenomenon, I mean, after going through all this, there's only one reasonable conclusion. They're hiding something in Antarctica. And I just find that highly coincidental that the Antarctica, under the traditional flat Earth map, is the shoreline of the world's oceans. So to me, if they're hiding something below the 60th south parallel, that should cause everyone to start seeking answers, because it's crazy. But I did want to thank especially Jeranism, because he's the one who really got me started on searching out the Antarctica regulations, especially all the fakery going on. And so it's just kind of building on what other people have already done. And I hope others can kind of build on that as well, because they're hiding something there. And every person, globe people or whatever, they should be concerned, because they're lying about Antarctica. That's an interesting issue. What are they hiding? You know, I think it's pretty obvious they're hiding the flat Earth, but at least a globe supporter should be concerned about why millions of square miles are blocked off to independent travel. Is there a possibility I could share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Am I sharing?
You are sharing, and
okay,
we're live.
Okay, so what I wanted to show you was, I did mention this to Patricia Steer yesterday, but I did want to get your opinion, Bob, is this statute here. It's a 14 CFR 121.161.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, Jaron, but in this statute, I was trying to solve these issues with respect to flying to Antarctica, because that's still the common knee-jerk response is, well, why don't you just fly it instead of trying to take a sled there? You can't take, under this statute, you can't take a one-engine airplane within 60 minutes. You have to be within 60 minutes of an airport.
Mm-hmm.
Or 180 minutes if you're a two-engine airplane or more. And what I thought was so fascinating is the definition of the North Polar area is right here. It's 78 degrees north latitude.
Huh.
But you look at it, the South Polar area, that is 60 degrees south latitude.
Yeah, much bigger area.
So what they're basically saying is there is no way you could even traverse Antarctica in an airplane. And the fact that they have a huge discrepancy with safety concerns from the north to the south area I find is very telling that there is something that they do not want you flying over Antarctica. And I mean, even with these websites that offer supposedly flights to Antarctica, there is no way that they could get that far through Antarctica, because they're limited to flying to, you still need 90 minutes to get back. And so you can maybe touch Antarctica before you have to turn around and fly back.
Yeah, and only certain planes have exceptions to that. I know that the Boeing 789 or 789 Dreamliner, I think, has a huge exception to where they're able to go, I want to say it's something like 360 minutes without being near an airport. I'll find out the exact amount, but there is some planes that have been given permission because that route from Sydney to Santiago is one of those routes where it cannot land at Easter Island because the runway is not long enough. I think a A380 needs they need like 2 miles of runway, and I don't think there's that much at Easter Island. So they give them an exception because otherwise they wouldn't be able to fly that southern route because that's 6,000 miles, and they're basically away from an airport for a majority of it. But I'll find out exactly what those exceptions are. But yeah, no, it's very interesting, especially when you're talking about these. I mean, Bob, for the most part, how big does a plane have to get before it's a two-engine plane?
Well, that's kind of it's kind of hard to say because I mean they have single engine planes that are turbocharged and they have a lot of power, but I think the thinking behind the one engine and two engine and the time difference is they figure, well, if you've got two engines, typically even if one engine goes out on a twin engine plane, that you should have at least enough power to at least maintain an altitude and get to a safe landing spot or an airport or something like that. And obviously if you have one engine or a single engine plane and that engine goes out, you're in trouble. So
right.
basically they say the propeller on the airplane is there to keep the pilot cool, right? Because that propeller goes out, he's going to get hot in a hurry. So I think that's kind of the thinking behind it. But as far as what it would take before it requires another engine, obviously that's an engineering problem. But they do have some pretty powerful single-engine turbo planes that, basically go straight up and hang by the prop with no problem. A lot of the aerobatics planes are like that. So, it all depends on the purpose that they're being used for.
Mm-hmm.
But with respect to this is limited with it's only applies to the north area and the south area. So this isn't just crossing the ocean. This is when you decide to cross the 60th south parallel. Now you're limited to 180 minutes of an airport. So it wouldn't apply just, flying to Hawaii or anything like that. But anyway, I just found it fascinating that they have this huge discrepancy between the north and the southern area when this is supposed to be a safety issue.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that they don't want you touching the 60th south parallel.
Yeah. And I think also, within an airport is, if you go down, obviously the only way that, I shouldn't say the only way, the best way that somebody would get to you would be able to fly to you, from an airport or whatever, even though, they may or may not be able to land. I would imagine that the planes in the Arctic and Antarctic would be outfitted with skis, so they could pretty much land anywhere. And so I think, that to me doesn't seem like an overly unreasonable requirement. What is curious, though, about it is the extended protection area in the South Pole, starting from 60 degrees. That's kind of an eyebrow raiser right there.
The other thing I wanted to share with you, I don't know if has any of you seen this video? The mountains are disappearing in Antarctica from Spill the Truth. This it just also recently came out. This is from the book of Admiral Byrd, and he names all these islands. These mountains of Rockefeller Mountains, and these ranges all around. But when you go actually onto Google Earth, these mountain ranges don't exist.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not there. Anyway, something else fascinating that there's something wrong with the mountain ranges that don't match Admiral Byrd's maps at all. Anyway, something to check out. But I'm done sharing screens now.
Okay.
Can I make some drop some ideas? Because I have a few doubts based on the flights on Antarctica.
Okay. Do you need to share screens?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Because, I gonna, drop some of ideas simply. Maybe it's a little disorder, but the first thing I don't understand is the concept, because when you took a flight from, for example, Argentina to Australia, supposedly it takes around 12 hours of flight, right?
Right.
But when you see, for example, the transpolar route, it take like 18 hours, and the same pilot is telling that. This is, I think a lot of flat earthers out there are see this video. This is the first commercial Argentina, the first and the only one commercial Argentinian flight through Buenos Aires to Sydney in 2014. And, it's like an interview of one of the passenger with the pilot in the cabin. And the pilot, of course, the first thing that he's going to say is, we don't pass over Antarctica because we are forbidden that. So we also travel. Let me just put the the pilot himself, because my English is not so good. But here he's gonna say is one of the longest flight in the world. It took 16 hours and 45 minutes just time flight, without the descending and the ascending times. So it's a little down the volume, but I can try some.
Like Chile or Qantas or whatever started to use like ships indeed all around the world, for example. And we made these transpolar routes.
See.
We created this in the 1980. That is why the name, the number of the flight, 1180, the inbound flight. And we were the first airliner all around the world to make this kind of flight and these so big latitudes. And Buenos Aires, Sydney is the longest flight ever made for any airliner.
Wow.
The inbound flight depends. Arrives up to.
That audio quality is pretty bad, Iru.
Yeah, but you can hear it.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, we can barely hear it, but yeah, we can hear it. We heard it say that it was the longest flight. Yes.
Yeah, and now it's gonna say the time flight, and then I take out the video.
Okay.
Sorry.
Arrives up to 16 hours and 45 minutes.
Well, almost 17 hours.
Flight time.
Yeah, and he remarked flight time.
Flight time, not block. Just when you take off until.
So this is the first thing that I call my attention, because supposedly why, if you don't make that transpolar route, your flight is going to take less time than supposedly the short distance based on the transpolar route. Maybe I missed something, sorry, but this is the first, something that caught my attention. And also, for example, when you start, this is a news, I'm translated because it's in Spanish, the news, but it's low-cost Norwegian will link Buenos Aires with Oceania over Antarctica. This is from the 26th of February of 2018. And this is, supposedly, maybe is going to do it. It's not, a situation that is going to happen. But here, when you start reading the article, you're going to find the same thing. The supposedly flight time is going to be 15 hours. 15 hours. It's not going to be 11 hours or 12 hours. And then when you start looking, of course, I'm going to show this really quickly, but all the time the flight tracker on the Antarctic is a partnership with the FAA and NASA. And this is you can read the PDF and see how in 2017, Air Service Australia is going to work together with NASA, and all the ATC radars are, conducting with NASA. You can go a little deeper if you like into the conspiracy, for quote. But this is, I think that caught my attention. Why is talking about supposedly 12 hours, but the pilot or the real news is talking about 16 hours, 18 hours. Depends of the winds, in fact.
Yeah, it depends a lot on the winds. I mean, no doubt. But from what I've seen, it usually you can do, well, at least the Auckland to Santiago in 11 hours. But what I was talking about earlier, just so I can clean that up, it's called ETOPS. You ever heard of that, Bob?
Like the ETOPS? Have heard of ETOPS, yes.
Yeah, so it's like extended range operations with 2-engine airplanes, which doesn't make sense with the acronym. Although I think that they now say it means engines turn or passengers swim, which is a nice thing, isn't
it? That's right up there with the propeller keeping the pilot cool. Yeah, I got it.
So, basically and these Boeing 787, I was saying 789, it's a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner has the highest rating of ETOPS 330. So it means it's able to fly for that many minutes without being close to a place to land. But no, I mean, different when you get into Antarctica, because those, for the most part, you'd think you'd be able to take a single engine plane down there since there is runways there for you to go to. But I guess not if you go by the rules that, Ben just showed us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they have some pretty strict storage rules about all that, fuel or anything like that. So, but yeah, all they have to do is put the plane on skis and they're good to go. And they can land it pretty much anywhere with all that vast ice land up there. I don't think it would be a problem to find a place to take off and land in Antarctica.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. The pilot says like they cannot, if they have any trouble on the flight, they must be land on the sea or trying to get back to land or to Buenos Aires or to Australia, but they cannot, but under any situation, trying to land in any military base or approach to Antarctica because they shooting down. And that said, the pilot said that.
Wow.
Yeah, I can put you, if you like, I can put with the audio. It's not my words, it's the words of the pilot.
I believe you, and that doesn't, I mean, it's amazing. It surprises me, but it doesn't surprise me, that they would say, oh, well, no, you can't touch down here at this. Our secrets are so important that we would rather kill a plane load of people than, have you land here for maintenance or, on a life-saving. It's just ridiculous.
I did add one other thing. With respect to those statutes, it looks like those were passed right after the Mount Erebus disaster. Are you guys familiar with that?
Oh yeah, that's a very interesting story.
Yeah, it is, because it supposedly this plane crashed with like 230 people on board, killed everybody, but it crashed right into the broadside of Mount Erebus, which is a large volcano there in Antarctica, and there was no storm. And
and if you look into that, it's because the flight charts were wrong, and then even more than that, the pilot got blamed for it, and then they supposedly right before the trial, or I have to watch it again. There's a good movie about it, but basically they raided his house and planted evidence, and I mean, there's so much wrong with that. I couldn't grab much from it in regards to this topic, but it certainly is an interesting story that tells you that airlines will hang their pilots dry before they ever take the responsibility. And the responsibility was clearly theirs to provide these flight charts, and the flight chart drew them right into the mountain. And I guess when you're flying down there, when you've got the horizon being that kind of hard to see with the white snow and then the sky and the reflection, he flew right into the hill, killed everybody. So they tried to blame the pilot, and then I was confusing. They tried to blame the pilot. He was dead, obviously. But they raided his house and planted evidence after the fact to kind of show that he was like not a good pilot and that he didn't know what he was doing, even though he had a bunch of years with them. And yeah, that's a crazy story, though, that whole Mount Erebus story. And then that's when they made the change to what they allowed.
Yeah, with respect to those provisions that you can't fly too far below the 60th south parallel.
Interesting. Yeah, because it was just a sightseeing flight, really. And I was kind of trying to look at it to see if anything of it was a hoax story. And I still don't know if that's the case or not. It certainly looked like they had, went to trial and everything, because basically they were trying to blame the pilot, and his family was saying, no, it's the airline's fault. So something to look into. I don't remember. Do you remember, Bob, the name of the flight number? It was like New Zealand flight something. I'll find it because it's an interesting story.
Yeah, I remember it, but I do not remember the flight number. Sorry about that.
Was it big news at the time? I mean, was it like, you remember, you mean in
Well, I remember hearing about it through you, because you were talking about it. Yeah.
It's Air New Zealand DC-10 plane.
Yeah, there you go.
On November 28th, 1979, killing 257.